Hey everybody, it's Angelo with Angelo's Workbench. Welcome back to the channel. This is video number 5 in the beginner how-to with the Revell 1970 Dodge Charger, and I'm going to get started straight away by adding the air cleaner to the engine that was prepared in the previous videos. For those of you just joining us and haven't seen videos 1 through 4, I would suggest going back through my playlist. All of the videos are there, videos 1 through 4 for the beginner how-to video series. The premise of this video series is to take a basic model kit and put it together without using anything like airbrushes or anything along those lines. We're hand painting, we're gluing, just like the old school days. And I'm offering a lot of beginner tips. If you're new to model building or just returning to model building after a long hiatus, this video series was made for you. I hope you enjoy it. And now let's talk a little bit about applying a wash. So now I am using some Tamiya panel line accent color. I'm using this because you can make the same thing. All you would need would be, and this is even enamel as well, so all you would need would be black and thinner. And if you take 10 drops of the black and put one drop of the black and put 10 drops of the thinner in, you will get this same liquidy stuff. It's called a wash. And what I'm doing now is I'm basically applying the wash into the little portions of the grill to make them pop out so that we don't have to paint in there. Alternatively, if you wanted to, it would be a little bit more work than this, is you could paint the inside of that flat black and then go in with a Q-tip after and remove the paint from the high parts, which needs to be chrome. But I think a wash does an easier job. And there it is, all washed up. You'll see that the wash has settled into the low spots. The chrome is still revealed in the high spots. Even this charger emblem looks better with a little bit of wash to highlight the edges. And now that just needs to cure, dry. You may have to reapply a couple more coats of this, or if you don't have the panel line accent color, this. You just have basic enamel paints. 10 parts thinner, 1 part paint. So 10 drops of this, 1 drop of this. You mix it all together. It should be very, very, very liquidy. And then you just put it into the parts of the grill like I just did. And that looks great. Really adds a nice detail, and you don't have that big honking piece of chrome in the front. You really want to have a wash applied to bring out the details. Okay, so we have some chrome highlights in various parts of the interior, some little pieces of chrome trim. And you'll see here in the instructions, this is the center console. And you'll see in the instructions it's got it called out for G, which is the chrome around this chrome trim here. So they're really, and we're going to be putting a decal on the inside portions here, here, and here, which is fine, and those decals are here. There, there, and there. They do not include the chrome trim. So, in order to get this chrome trim to look good, now, if you're really, really, really good with a brush, and you think you can just paint that little raised part, then you go right ahead. I am not that good with a brush. I can get it probably most of the way, but I would invariably end up with some seepage over onto the black, and then I'm repainting the part, and it looks not very good. So what you can do in a case like this, or you could also, instead of a brush, you could try a toothpick, and you could try getting the toothpick, and you could try just getting it on this very top part of this, because if the paint drips down and runs down, it's not going to look right. So, or we could do something called what's called dry brushing, which means I'm going to basically put some paint on this brush, and you're going to want to have a dedicated brush for this, because you are going to ruin this brush. So this is my official dry brushing brush, and you'll see it looks like, well, it looks like me without a hat on, basically. It's fuzzy, and it's been rubbed very hard on things, so it looks this way. So don't use a good brush. Don't use one of your nice detailing brushes to dry brush. Use a brush like this. And then once you dedicate it to dry brushing, you can reuse it for dry brushing. Like, this can be your dry brushing brush. So, and this is my dry brushing brush. So now I'm going to get some silver paint here. And I'm not going to put a lot of paint on the brush. In fact, I'm going to put very little on the brush, because I'm going to take most of it off before it even touches this part. So I'm going to do this. And now you have to get most of it off. And I know what you're thinking. You're taking all the paint off. No, I'm not. There's still quite a bit of paint in there. In fact, there might still be too much. Let's see here. Now I'm just going to rub it over the top. And you see what it's doing? It's picking up the high parts. There is still too much paint on there. There. Now the decals are going to cover that inside part just fine. But look what I've got left here. Got left just a little bit. And it's okay if you have to go over this several times and build it up. It's better to have to go over it twice than go in here with too much paint on it and then end up just painting the part silver. That's no good either. There, see? Look at how that's silver now. Gives it a nice worn look too. So now I gotta get most of this paint off. There we go. Oh, look at that. Now the high parts are silver. The center parts are going to be wood. Which is why I didn't worry about getting paint in there. If I was worried about getting paint in there, I would have only rubbed the high parts like this. But since I'm covering that center part with a decal anyway, I can do both sides at once by doing that. And there it is. We've got some good dry brushing done there. Now let's put the decals on. And you'll see what I mean about how it works. One secret to making your dry brushing brush last a little bit longer is, even though I've taken most of the paint off of this, dip it into thinner anyway. Give it a good cleaning. This brush gets abused. The least we can do is clean it. There we go. And that'll help make it last a little bit longer. I've been using this as my dry brushing brush for years. We're going to do more dry brushing on these door panels later on, because there is some chrome trim on here as well. There I will have to be a little bit more cautious with how I dry brush. I won't be able to go get silver on the inner panels because there's no decals for the doors, unfortunately. I wish there were. There are only decals for the instrument panel and the center console. So let's go ahead and cut these out. And when you cut out decals, I like to use an X-Acto knife. You could use scissors alternatively. But you need to be very careful that you don't cut any other decals. You just take the ones that you want. And also that you don't damage any of them. Like right here, it would be very easy for me to just slip with the knife and, oh, there goes one of the engine decals. So you just have to be very careful. You always want to have good control of your X-Acto knife. Don't go crazy. These things are very dangerous and very sharp. And that, believe it or not, did not cut the paper. As I'm saying, it's very sharp. It didn't cut paper. It's time for a new blade, perhaps. Okay, so there's our decals. The center console. And I've got some good old H2O here, which I always keep a little water handy. It comes in handy for a lot of things. I don't have a sink out here in the workbench, so there we go. So 10 seconds in the water is good. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's about right. So we'll take this out and we'll put it right here. So you could use a little decal setting solution. I like micro set. Or if you're having difficulty getting a decal, there is Micro Sol, which is significantly stronger than the blue. That softens decals to go around complex curvature areas. However, this is just a little flat area, so I might be inclined to just take a little bit of water just to help the decal set. Take a little bit of water with your brush and just kind of put it there. And then when you put the decal on, the water stays under it, makes you so that you can slide it around a little, get it exactly in place, and then take your Q-tip and wipe it right out of there. So let's get our decals going. They should be just about ready. So there's a couple different methods here. Sometimes you could just take a toothpick and then let's see if it's ready to slide yet. Nope, not quite ready to slide yet. So I'll dip it in a little bit more water. And that should be ready to slide pretty soon. Once it loosens up, you want to be careful. You don't want to tear the decal or damage it. So, oh, look at that. I got a big glob of water on that. Let's get rid of some of that. Q-tips are great. Never underestimate the many uses of a Q-tip. Okay, now my decals are sliding. So, there's a couple different ways of doing this. Just get a little bit more water here. One method is to use a toothpick or something and just slide the decal off onto the part approximately where you think it's going to go. And that works easy enough. Some people like to actually remove the decal. This works good for small ones. If it's a larger decal, I would use the method that I just showed you. But if you take it off with a pair of pliers, you can apply the decal where it wants to go. I say where it wants to go because sometimes they can fight you a little bit. And then this guy, I'm just going to pull right off like that. Set right in there. So now we have a wood grain dash. And I'm just going to, you don't want to rub the decal because you will most likely slide the decal. So I roll the Q-tip. There you go. Roll the Q-tip. And this one is a little bit crooked. There we go. So I want to straighten that out before I roll this Q-tip and get all the water out from under it. There we go. Now you'll see the dry brushed areas are highlighted in silver. They look very nice. And the wood grain decals, which is really cool that the kit came with those. Saves you having to go in and paint it just with a brown. It just adds an extra level of detail and realism, which looks very nice. There's also a shifter that's going to go in here. Now, I always tend to just install the shifter and then paint it in there, except for that boot. Because when I install this, have I got this going in right? It goes like that, if I'm not mistaken. No, I guess not. Nope. It goes like that. The famous pistol grip shifter. That's awesome. Because this is going to be so close to that silver when I set this part in there, I'm going to paint the boot first. So I'm going to get a little bit of flat black paint. And then I can put it in there wet. I mean, it can cure while it's in there. That's not a big deal. But I need to paint it before it goes in, just to make life easier on ourselves. So I'll get myself a little brush here. And some flat black paint. There we go. And the boot is good. Now I'll worry about the shifter handle, because that needs to be wood, which I did a flat brown on the steering wheel. I'll worry about the shifter boot, or excuse me, the shifter handle after the fact. I can paint that after this is glued in. And like so. here we have it. We'll let that cure for a little bit. I can go ahead and give the shift handle its brown color to match the steering wheel, because they did have wood wood handles and wood steering wheels back in the day. And get myself a little brush here. A very little brush. And I can see the line where the wood grain starts on the shifter. It's a lot easier to paint that installed than to be handling a small part. That's often the case. If you can paint something installed without getting paint on anything else, go for it. There it is. There's the center console and shifter. There's one more part we got to stick in there. And that's that little guy right there. He goes on the end. And then the center console will be ready for installation in the interior, which has been painted already. The interior of this car being all black, which was often the case back in the muscle car eras, leaves you a lot of room for extra detailing, because it is just a sea of black. You definitely want to try and highlight some things, bring in some other colors like silver and wood, so that you don't just have a sea of black, just all black. Especially once the car is built, it is harder to see inside the model car. Unless you're dealing with a convertible, where then everything goes in the interior, and you really have to detail everything. Or you run the risk of having a model that displays poorly. So, now this little guy goes right here, which is a nice little added detail. Revell put a lot of nice little added details on this kit. And that is that. Make sure I get it straight. There's no guide for that part. It just kind of glues on there flat. And there it is. Get a little water here we need to clean up. If you spill any water on your workbench, you should clean it up right away. Because whatever's going to happen, Murphy's Law, somehow this is going to end up in the water. And then the decals are going to be ruined. If you wet them and don't use them right away, then the decals are ruined. So any spilt water, clean it up right away. You're doing yourself a favor. Here is the interior, and so we can now install the center console in the interior because it's ready. And there's a tab there. The shifter actually is what holds this in, so we can get our glue going here, and we can put some glue here. I'm not going to glue the edges of the center console. It's not a high stress part. And then I would be running the risk of having glue seep out the edges and unsightly glue lines. This way, the part is in. I can see it's in. It's glued. It's not going anywhere. And that is that. The center console is in the car. And it looks very nice, I must say. If I do say so myself. So now what we can do is we can install our seats. I have painted those already, and they are all ready to go. I did paint these with spray paint. The same black Krylon spray paint that I used on the interior parts as well as the undercarriage. And I really like how these came out with that Krylon satin finish. It does have a very nice finish. It looks the part. You know, it looks like the real deal. So then we have our back seat, and we can put that one in first. Let's just test fit here and see how the back seat fits. Oh, it fits like a glove. So our glue points are going to be the back and the bottom. So what I'll do is I'll get a little bit of glue. You don't want to go too crazy with the glue here. I'll get a little bit of glue here. I'll get a little bit of glue here. And then we'll put some glue down here. Okay. And now, it's just a question of getting it in the right place. Hopefully on the first try, and look at that. There it is. Now, I see our seat doesn't really want to stick to this back. So I might just put a little clamp here, just for a little while. Maybe it needs it, maybe it doesn't. Yeah, it needs it. So I'm going to put a little clamp there. And these little squeezy clamps, you know, you can't have too many of these. You could use clothespins, anything that's going to put some pressure on the part to make sure that it cures correctly. Especially since this seat seems to not want to cure, right? It does not want to go in here. So I'm actually going to clamp all 4 corners. And I should be able to take those clamps off in about 15 minutes. Hopefully they don't leave any residue on the seat. If they do, I can clean it. Or squirt a little more black on there. And now I'm just going to give these seats a glue in. The front seats, they can go in while those clamps are clamping. Or maybe not. Gravity is not cooperating. There we go. Give gravity a little assist. And with the gluing in of the front seats, that's going to wrap up video number 5 in the beginner how-to video series with the Revell 1970 Dodge Charger. I hope you'll come on back and join me for video number 6, where we will get back to work on the interior, finish it up, and move on to the next steps. I hope you're enjoying the beginner how-to. These are some pretty long videos with a lot of detail. I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this. In the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see that subscribe button. Go ahead and click that if you're not already a subscriber. Also, various parts of the screen over to the right and at the bottom, I've got some links to other playlists and other videos. Thank you for tuning in to Angelo's Workbench.